to A Gem of a Secret podcast. My name's Donatella My Secrets.
And my name is Coco Gem Holiday.
How you doing tonight, Coco?
So today has been a really interesting day.
Yeah.
Mainly because it's been like several days in a row where I haven't had nothing to do, and it's made me feel so busy and productive at the same time. So I'm gonna say I feel rested.
Rested. That's needed.
Yeah,
You just
really
got
is.
back from a nice cruise,
I did.
and sometimes going on a vacation really does take it out of you.
It really does take it out of you. I'm glad I took the time off actually right after.
Yeah.
Mainly to get my stuff together. What are you wearing this evening, Donna?
Well, you see, I am just in one of those like rescue floaties.
Oh,
I have one around the breastal area and one around the crotchal area.
I didn't know they were calling them breastal areas.
Oh, okay. I didn't know either. I think it's something I made up on the spot. And then I also have a starfish in my hair.
Oh, for the love. I did go with the beach theme. I am in full body right now, rocking a gorgeous blue swimsuit. It has a pattern of the American flag right on the ass, and then there's stars right on the titties. And then I have my hair up in like kind of like a messy bun, but like not too messy, so it doesn't look like I didn't wash my hair. And then I also have a starfish in my hair.
Yeah, we got a match. And we all love a messy bun.
We do love a messy bun.
Not a messy bottom, though.
Oh God, no, because it's just poo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
So,
gosh, so much has happened since
yeah.
because I was gone for a while, and I know we had our bonus episode release in the middle of the week there. Gosh, there's so much that has just kind of changed. So let's do a little bit of an update. So Donna's back in school right now.
Yeah, I am taking my culture, diversity, and ethnicity course right now. It's much more challenging than my first course.
What was your first course?
It was just like an intro to psych, like thinking from a psychological perspective. This one really gets into the psychology of racism, which I'm finding is really interesting. It definitely is opening a lot of... I'm definitely becoming a lot more aware of things than I used to be. And I thought Portland made me woke, but this class is definitely helping me become woke from a scholarly point of view.
Opposed to whatever the F Portland thinks it's doing.
But yeah, no, I'm really enjoying the course. Just white people are terrible. We're awful.
White people are terrible.
That's all I'm coming to as a conclusion. No, I mean, yes, but yeah, no, it's definitely eye-opening. I'm really enjoying it, and I am happy to be continuing my education.
So Dawn and I were talking about this, and I think this is a great conversation because I was gone for Columbus Day or Indigenous Peoples Day, and Donna was talking about she was having a conversation with someone about Columbus and like all of the terrible things that were lied to us about as we were children, because that's the best way to explain it.
I don't know, I feel like it's something that people need to educate themselves on thoroughly, because there's no reason to be celebrating Christopher Columbus because he committed so many atrocities.
Like not even like he didn't. Like, everybody talks about the positive things that he did, which is all lies.
It is lies.
Literally all.
He didn't discover
lies.
the Americas. No.
Like,
he actually thought the world was much smaller than it really was. Because people are always like, oh, he's the one that said that the earth was round, that confirmed that the earth was round. No, Columbus thought the world was much smaller, and was absolutely known as a failure.
I know.
He actually even got tried by the people that sent him on this conquest because he committed such terrible atrocities.
Yeah, genocide.
Yeah.
Genocide.
He fed indigenous babies to dogs in front of their parents.
Yeah.
Like,
he's a horrible person.
He raped manatees.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
He raped manatees?
Yes. Yeah, he had, in his diaries, there's evidence that he had sexual relations with manatees.
Those aren't people.
No, but there's speculation that they were said to be mermaids by people in that time, or Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
it's
I did hear. I have heard the myths about manatees and mermaids and
yeah,
things like that.
and I don't know all the accuracy about that, but yeah, there's something else, you know, more than just being like a terrible, awful person who slaughtered indigenous people. He also occasionally indulged in bestiality. Um,
Great person, this man.
yeah, yeah, and also had a sex ring that he would send like young girls to from these new lands that he was discovering in quotations,
Yikes!
and he would send them off to like wealthy European men. These are underage girls that he
And
was sending off.
didn't he never step foot in America? Isn't that something too?
I believe so.
I
There's
think I think
yeah,
that that's also true.
yeah,
Like he
someone
never made it in
who's
his
never
lifetime.
actually here.
Yeah.
Um, so
Great man.
just all sorts of stuff. And the only reason why we actually do celebrate Columbus Day, just so people know, is because Italian Americans were facing a lot of discrimination in the late 1800s, and the Knights of Columbus came together to have a figure that they wanted to celebrate and give contributions to in order to kind of like help the image of like Italian Americans and the kind of like hardships that they were facing when they immigrated from Italy to the U.S.
I always find it really fascinating when you discover something. See, this is what's weird because with the internet nowadays, we have the ability of creating these stories and viral stories because that's what these are, right? Viral stories.
Yeah.
Um, but it was so interesting that this is just what people thought. Um, this is the story that people thought was true.
Yeah.
For a very, 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 very long time.
Well, it's because it's literally what we were taught in like the little cartoons. It was like just Columbus set sail to, you know, confirm that the Earth was round and all of these things. It's what we were fed,
Yeah.
but none of it was
Literally
true.
propaganda, the
Yeah.
true definition.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's kind of scary, actually.
Yeah.
About how many things I liken it to, just different things that everybody thinks is true. Like, you remember the story that came out about how, like, with the regular Nintendo, that if you blew on the cartridge, it would make it work.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually, and people were always like, how did we all know that this thing was true and something like that? And eventually, I remember as an adult, there was a meme that came out. The reason that we all thought that was true is because it was actually in the instruction booklet
Mm.
that that's what you do if the game wasn't working correctly.
Hmm.
So like this is our history books are our guidebook, just like that instructional booklet for
Mm-hmm.
that system about this is the things that we learn about our country, and we
Mm-hmm.
don't question those things
No.
because there's no reason to. We're being taught, this is our educational system. You're a child, you're taught to be inquisitive, and then you just think that this thing is true, and then this thing is horribly wrong. But
Mm-hmm.
what also this has taught us about society is that people, like the conversation Donna and I were having before the podcast, is that people get stuck on the thing that they think is true.
Yeah, they do, and they don't want to break tradition. I find that like the mindset behind a lot of the people that don't want to embrace Indigenous Peoples Day is that they don't want to get rid of the traditions that they're used to, and I think that's bogus. I think you know just because we've always done something doesn't give us an excuse to keep on doing it. If we can grow and learn more about something and change our ways and be better as a population of people, then we should.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't understand why we consistently get stuck. Like, so a good example is like my mom was even one of those people who doesn't like saying happy holidays. She likes saying Merry Christmas. Which is kind of along the lines of the same subject
Yeah.
about how people refuse to just see the light a little bit and about what they're actually saying and what they're doing and what they mean.
Yeah.
And people will like fight tooth and nail to keep some of these traditions alive that don't need to be here anymore.
Yeah.
And it doesn't actually hurt you to get rid of them.
It doesn't.
That's the thing.
It doesn't. As people fear change and are just very like resistant to it. And
Right.
that's the thing is like we're going into an era of change, and if you can't accept it and embrace it, then you need to move aside because there are generations ahead of you that are going to be bulldozing for some of this change because we recognize the faults in this country and we want better for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that some things can seem really odd or uncomfortable, but I was one of those people for a long time. But I was at the
Same.
age of where, I was in my 20s when a lot of this, I feel like I feel like they should call this era something like kind of like they did with the Industrial Revolution. I think that
Mm-hmm.
they really should be calling this era something about change.
Yeah.
Like some word to describe how after Obama, actually during Obama's presidency, people felt like they had enough representation to begin speaking out against just social injustices that have
Mm-hmm.
existed a long time. But now that we had the internet, we could make our stories go viral
Yeah.
and we could get to more people faster because it's not like these things didn't exist in the past. It was just that somebody was saying it and they would just get lost in the void and never get enough reach.
Yeah.
But now it's getting enough reach about the things that need to change,
Yeah, for
like
real.
Indigenous Peoples Day and Columbus Day.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the internet, I don't think that that change would have happened.
Yeah, we need that social interaction through social media. I think that as hard as those conversations are to have on these platforms, they are very necessary. Um, and sometimes not a lot gets accomplished. Sometimes it's just a yelling match that ends up happening. But at least having it out there and letting people know the reasons why these things happen and providing actual factual information about it is integral.
Well, and here's the thing too. Usually, when you say to people like about Columbus, when you finally open up, you're like, no, 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 they were a terrible person. They're like, we wouldn't have what we have today without Columbus. You're like, no, that's a lie. And they're like, prove it. And I'm like, well, we all have Google in our hands, and it'll take 3 seconds for me to prove you wrong.
Yeah.
But like, I think people should just be a little bit. I guess my bottom line is people should be more open to understanding what actually happened in our history
Yeah.
versus just the really controlled narrative. Like even for more positive things. I know we've said it on our podcast before, but like how people think that Martin Luther King was like a really good person
Mm.
and he wasn't a really great person.
No.
Like I always just say he was an adulterer,
Yeah.
very much so.
And very anti-gay.
Yeah, very anti-gay, and he was a criminal.
Yeah.
And so, like, just I think that these stories, at least on that front, make somebody seem more human. With the Columbus thing, it's just a flat out lie. So
Yeah. There are better people to choose than mass murderers.
Yeah.
And that's my biggest thing is that it really is like so frustrating to try and like prove the point that we don't need to be celebrating this person because there wasn't really a reason to celebrate him in the first place.
No,
There wasn't.
he sailed somewhere and murdered everybody until the population was like 40, and then
Yeah.
then continued just murdering and bringing disease and being a terrible
Yeah.
person
Yeah.
and apparently sleeping with animals.
Well, I mean, and look at what the byproducts of colonization have been. What? White supremacy and religious indoctrination. Like,
Yeah.
those are two not so great byproducts that we're still seeing the effects of today. You know, like we're still fighting that fight.
Right.
So, that's it's another big thing, and I think it's also important that a lot of like white people recognize too if they do have any sort of like native ancestry that they understand that native ancestry has a very dark story to it. And it was likely due to rape. It was likely because of colonization and the conquering of people who are now given the bare minimum, are still being given the bare minimum.
I know reparations is a real thing. Like, and we won't necessarily get into that conversation, but like, there is really historical trauma and historical damage done to different groups of people are really real things. People, I think the saddest part, which isn't really tangible and doesn't necessarily have a monetary value, is the loss of culture.
Yeah.
The loss of culture, or dying off with people to where people don't even know where they came from, really.
Yeah.
I just learned yesterday, one of the stand-up comics, and I just thought of this, so sorry if I say it wrong, but he talked about how there are tribes, like even with natives, there are tribes that have more popularity, and so tribes that were not as popular, their culture is kind of disappearing, and it's completely being like just suppressed because of the popular tribes. And I was like, I didn't even think about it because
Yeah.
there's no reason for me to have ever thought about it.
No. Yeah.
And so like they he was talking about how like if you didn't belong to, you know, these 7 tribes, like your history is pretty much going to be gone.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that's really heartbreaking.
It is. It is. There's literal like generations that have disappeared because of this, you know?
Yeah, ideas, cultures,
Yeah.
inventions, things like that. Just it's really sad.
Generations that could have had a really nice cultural appreciation and understanding of where they came from,
Yeah,
you know?
and I know that people, and just to touch on the conversation of cultural appropriation just briefly, I've
Mm-hmm.
been thinking about that a lot recently in a way that makes me sound like a conservative, but we need to make sure that cultural appropriation is not getting conflated with the idea of appreciating culture.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't talk about, I'm not talking about specifically music. What I'm talking about is like you should want to go into somebody's space that they're inviting you in to
Yes.
experience their culture.
From them.
Yeah, from them.
Mm-hmm.
Or like when you have a Chinatown or something like that, or you're going to Hawaii and they put the leis on you, they teach you how to hula dance and things like that, or you go to Japan and they dress you in kimonos and take
Mm-hmm.
pictures and things like that. That is cultural appreciation in
Mm-hmm.
those in the way that it should be. Or even going to your friend's house who they'll cook you, like your black friend's house, and they'll cook you some southern soul food or something
Yeah.
like that, and you're appreciating that, and you learn the recipe and you make it for your family and stuff like that. Just stuff like that, like appreciating and sharing ideas, I
Yeah.
think are really important because that's how we won't lose pieces of who we are as a society.
Definitely. And I have a little anecdote to go kind of along with that. I think a lot of times as white people, we will take on and appropriate people's cultures. And it's mostly the intention there is not to be malicious, but it ends up being like a malicious result from it, right?
Right.
Because you're taking something, and these are people who have historically been oppressed and trying to kind of take advantage of it because it's become something that's popular or cool. Um, Basically, so for me, I've been really in my spiritual practice because I consider myself to be a bit of like a witchy kind of spiritual individual. I've been looking further into my Scottish, like Celtic kind of like ancestry to take traditions and practices that they had in order to incorporate it into like my own spiritual journey rather than
Mm-hmm.
taking things from other cultures, which I think a lot of people in the spiritual community do, especially a lot
Mm-hmm.
of white people in the spiritual community do.
Right.
I've learned like what herbs are proper for me to use to sane instead of using like stuff like white sage or palo santo to do those
Ooh.
types of rituals to cleanse and whatnot. I'm looking at stuff like mugwort and things that are more appropriate for me to use because it's what my ancestors would have used,
Hmm.
rather than trying to like co-opt something that other cultures have done.
Hmm.
And I think instead of doing that, I think a lot of people who are in the majority can really look deeper into their ancestry and gain an appreciation for some of their more ancient ancestors. I'm not talking about your ancestors that colonized, that did a lot of terrible things, because I think that regardless of skin tone, you can have some ancestors that actually genuinely did appreciate a lot of humanity,
Mm-hmm.
and had an appreciation for all different kinds of people, and you can call on those ancestors to help you in your spiritual practice.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's super important just to embrace like our own heritage and traditions, and not try to like benefit from the traditions of other people, and especially minorities who have been historically oppressed and are currently still oppressed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I actually never thought about that before, that not everybody in your history, in your family line, like everybody just thinks of uh, their ancestors as just being garbage because, you
Hmm.
know, everything we learn about history is just garbage.
Yeah.
There probably were good people in your history.
Yeah, we all come from a long line of people. You
We
know?
do.
Like I really don't want to believe that every person that I've had is like this awful white devil that just was terrible to like,
This awful white devil.
you know, like I have ancient Scottish ancestors out there who wandered around in fields and like, you know, like practice like spiritual practices, and I want to embrace some of those spiritual practices.
Yeah, and
So
I have especially because I got colonized real hard.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I've seen your
my
ancestry.
23andMe is
Yeah, you're 23 and
my
me. I've seen
23andMe
that.
is rough. Um,
You're more Irish than I am. I'm 2% Irish and you're like 14%.
I know. Gosh, that's why I feel so entitled. Um, no, seriously. Um, but actually, because it's been a little bit later, Donna, how are you doing this evening?
Oh, Coco, I will let you know after this brief break.
It's a podcast with Coco and Donna. Tell a podcast. Tune into what they tell you podcast with Coco and Donna. Tell a podcast.
Well, Coco, I'm feeling a little winded because we just got on a long tangent about things that this episode initially wasn't supposed to be about. But, I'm feeling good, and I'm ready to kind of unpack some of the things that you got to experience on this cruise and what
Yeah.
it means to be an entertainer in that type of setting.
An international entertainer.
An
I'm sorry.
international entertainer. Hamburger Mertes. Hamburger Mertes.
Mertes. Hamburger Mertes.
Hamburger Mertes.
Mertes.
Puerto Vallarta, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah, that was a really great experience. So for our listeners, so I went on a cruise it was a 7-day cruise. We left out of Los Angeles, Long Beach, and then we sailed to Puerto Vallarta. I can't pronounce it at all.
Puerto Vallarta?
Yeah, and then we went to Cabo, and then we came back, and
Nice.
that was kind of the journey of the cruise. And actually, because of a storm, we didn't go to all the places we were supposed to. So we got 2 days in PV, which was cool, because we got to explore more.
Yeah.
It sucks that the second day we were in PV, though the boat was leaving at noon.
Mm-hmm.
So like you had to like get up real early, go do your stuff, and come back. Like it's kind of a journey in itself.
I also want to just clarify that was a very like white and Anglo-Saxon pronunciation of that. I probably am pronouncing it wrong as well. So
Well, it's funny because like people who are ethnic speakers on the boat, they like I was just like, oh wow, I am pronouncing this very very American.
it's like Puerto Vallarta.
Oh, that's a lot better.
Yeah, probably a lot better than the first time. So that's an amazing experience. I think it's probably an experience that most queens would want to have in their life at some point.
Yeah, performing on a cruise ship was amazing, and then performing at Hamburger Mary's was just. So I have to say this about the PV queens, like it's hot there,
Mm-hmm.
very hot, and
Yeah.
like humid, so humid. It's like. There's a difference between like human where you're like, oh my god, I feel like I'm stepping into a pool versus stepping into like, wow, I am like in the pool. Like,
Yeah.
good lord. And so like just moving a little bit, I was just sweating bullets. Like the whole
Yeah.
time I was just sweating bullets. And I was wet and I was drenched. The girls down there performed
But were you moist?
oh so moist. The girls down there performed 2 numbers in a row that were like 4 minutes each, so they had 8-minute numbers where they had massive choreography. Like I
What?
mean like massive choreography. And everybody down there at Hamburger Mary's was dressed
Are they also triathletes? Like, how did they?
well, they were all really built. Actually.
Yeah.
And they could just do all the dance moves,
Damn.
and like getting it done, and just like for 8 minutes,
Yeah.
just 8 minutes, and I was like, I did a 6-minute mix. Sorry, my mix
Yeah.
was 4 minutes and 30 seconds, and I was about to die. I was like so out of breath, and I was barely moving.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was fun. But they could dance, and they're beautiful. Oh, and their makeup was so good. And then I remember one of the hostesses, she like got done performing, and then like because I was just drenched,
Mhm.
and she like got a napkin for me and her stuff, and I was like, oh, she's sweating too. And all she did was she just like on her wiggling, she's like tap 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 tap. Done. That was it. That's all she sweat. And I was just like, pfft. like it was like a waterfall on my face. It was
Yeah.
awful. And I put on no sweat, but like it had no chance.
Damn, even there it
No
wasn't
chance.
holding up.
No chance.
That's rough. So I have some questions about what it was like hosting the shows actually on the ship as well. So
Yeah.
you got to host, and then you also got to perform in some shows as well there.
Yeah, I got to host the first showcase of our performers, and that was actually really hard. I couldn't find my groove right away. I did like towards the last 4 numbers, but I didn't for the first like few.
Yeah.
I was trying to make everybody laugh, but like nobody just like wanted to laugh. Our first showcase was like at 1 p.m. on like the Monday.
Yeah.
And like nobody was like really feeling like the vibe.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
it was good and we performed well, but like they just weren't feeling it.
Hmm.
And that kind of sucked.
Yeah.
But I feel like I did a great job. Like I always wanted to host something like that, and that was fun.
Yeah.
And my first performance, when I sang a couple songs, and they all went over super, super well.
Yeah.
I did my I Can Hear the Bells, of course. And this woman came up to me later. She's like, "Oh my God, your story almost made me cry." And I'm like, "Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you."
I know.
But it was great. It was nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
I guess is the best way to say it. But like it turned out well. It was fine.
How many midnight buffets did you get to indulge in?
So there wasn't any really. Actually, there were buffets, but they were only in the morning.
Oh, okay. So I'm also thinking about what this was like during the current times that we're living in. So how different was that, do you think, from what it would have been had we not been living in the middle of a pandemic as well?
So the boat was at 50% capacity, from what I understand.
Okay.
And so there was like a lot of extra space everywhere, which was really nice.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't people everywhere. The breakfast, they didn't like have like, not every station was filled out. Like I bet if it was at full capacity, every station would be filled out with food
Yeah.
and blah 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 blah. So that was different. And so they did have, the only thing that was open 24 hours was this, like, on the Lido deck there was this pizzeria that was open 24 hours.
Okay.
And that's where you could go eat at night. Or you
Nice.
could order room service, I think. But yeah, and the pizza wasn't good.
Oh,
But when you were drunk at like 2 a.m,
it was good.
yeah, I spent.
It was gourmet at that point.
Yes. Oh my gosh, it was so good. I did have. Okay, so I literally, like, long story short, somebody behind me, because I was starving.
Yeah.
Because I think we performed that day too. And somebody was like, "Hey, I have an extra piece of pizza." And so I ate her pizza. And then I spilled some of it on the ground because I didn't have a plate and it was hot. And then I literally got my pizza. They're like, "Well, I have a pepperoni." And I was like, "Oh, I want a pepperoni." And so I got the pepperoni. And then I literally, like, turned around to go sit, and the pizza just flew off the plate. And so Diana caught 2 of the pieces and the rest of them just hit the ground.
Oh.
And then I ate both of the pieces, and Diana, not the one that was on the ground, the one she was holding. And she's
Yeah.
like, "You didn't even offer me any of the pizzas that you let fall on the ground." And I was like, she's like, "That I caught." And I was like, "No, I was
No.
hungry, super hungry."
Thanks for catching it.
Thank you. That was so sweet of you. And then last but not least, and then, like, I went up to get 2 more pieces of pizza, and then somebody next to me offered me a piece, and then I ate their piece too. I was so hungry. I just ate everything on the boat.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like a great time. So, who were some of the entertainers that you got to perform with, and how was it seeing some of the people that you might have seen before? And yeah, talk a little bit about that.
So I've performed with Pandora Box at Vibe in Denver, and I was recounting a story to her that she forgot, but it was really funny for a long time, where she ordered, what she had actually said was Tito's and Red Bull, but the owner of Vibe heard Cheetos and Red Bull, so they brought her Cheetos and Red Bull, and she thought that was the funniest story in the world, because that's right around the time that Violet Chachki, actually no, not Violet, Valentina had the red M&M's thing going on. And so she's like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna get a reputation now that I need Cheetos." And they did. They went to the gas station down the road and got her Cheetos, and then brought her cans of Red Bull and
It's
made it look all
just
pretty.
the déclassé version of what Valentina gets.
Oh, it was so funny. And then that's also the time that she like walked off stage in the middle of her number, well, towards the end of her number, because nobody was like really living for it.
Yeah.
And she's like, "I'm not gonna be up there doing Stevie Nicks and nobody's caring about it. Like, I'm just gonna leave." Like,
Yeah.
And so she talked about that, which was cool. But, and also, just keep this in mind, like, about Pandora's history. She was on all 3 seasons of Drag U.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she's been on 2 different All-Stars.
Yep.
And then, I think, 1 season of Drag Race.
Yeah, it was season 2.
Yeah, like, she's been with that franchise a long time.
She has, yeah.
She's 50 or 49. I can't remember. It was just one of those ages, 49 or 50. Still looks amazing in drag. And so it was really, I hung out with her a lot.
Yeah.
So on the cruise, the headliners were Maxi Glamour from Dragula, then Darian Lake, Pandora Box, Party Favors. Yeah, and then of course they had the Camp on a Kiki folks as well.
You, Kitty, and Diana.
Me, Kitty, and Diana. Yeah. And then we had Cass Marie, who is, I think she was the very first ever, she's a trans woman who has the title of something. She's the first trans woman to have it, but I can't remember what the title is right now off the top of my head. And she was amazing. She was so fun to hang out with as well.
Mariah Paris Balenciaga.
And Mariah Paris Balenciaga. Gosh, I like her, but oh, she could drink. She could drink. Oh my goodness. They're all super cool. I hung out with Mariah and Pandora and Maxi the most.
Nice.
Darian was mostly hanging out with their friends and just kind of doing whatever they wanted to do. But, I mean, we hung out at dinner, but that was like it.
I've met Darian before at Denver.
Yeah.
I would say that she's probably the most standoffish of the Rue girls that I've ever met. Yeah. Was she that way?
She was at first. She made this joke that is so inappropriate, and I am going to repeat it. So she's had her merch setting up. She's like, yes. And like Maxie was like, oh, she's like, oh my God, I love your merch. She's like, yes, it was made by kids in cages. I was like, God. Darian. And she's like, what? They need work too? And I was like, oh my God, she's a horrible monster. And she's old.
Wow.
Yeah. But she's okay. I mean, the thing is, I liked her. She was fun. She's really quick-witted. Really quick-witted. She always had a line for everything you said to her. Always had a line. And that was great. And her makeup was beautiful. Like, she's really pretty up close and not as pretty as Mariah. My God.
Mug for days.
Mug for days.
They call her Mug for days for a reason. She is legendary.
Gorgeous in person. Up close, far away, wherever. And she can still, like, dance the house down boots. Like, it was, like, on the last day, she was wearing this little bodysuit with just some chains on it. And she's doing cartwheels into the splits and, like, all these things. And I'm like, damn, girl.
Yeah, she's fabulous.
Yeah, and she wants to come out to Portland.
Oh, that would be so cool.
Yeah, she wants to come out and do a Unity show with us.
Nice.
Maxie also super wants to come out as well.
Yeah.
And Pandora would like to come back. She doesn't sound excited. She's like, yeah, I'd like to come back.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was cool.
Nice. That's amazing. Yeah. I am just very happy for you and glad that you got to like have this as like one of your big like moments in drag. You know, it really is like a milestone.
It is, and I don't know what's next.
Yeah.
And I mean that in a good way. One of my dreams was always to perform on a cruise ship, but I did. So now what's next? Like, I said online, I said, okay, so I have a choice between, like, so far, just what I have in my head is, like, trying to get on Drag Race, trying to be a motivational speaker in drag, like, start a business doing that, where, like, companies can bring me in to do, like, diversity trainings or something like that, where I do it in drag and, like, blah, 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 blah. I said cut an album. Cut an album, and there was something else I had listed on there. And I don't know what's next. It's weird because, like, I have dreams and I have goals.
Yeah.
Performing on a cruise ship was a dream and a goal, of course. So when that removes from the list, you have to come up with a new dream. Yeah. And I don't know what I want that to be just yet.
Yeah. Well, you have time to figure it out.
I'm giving myself till January 1st to, like, because, like, I've achieved everything I've ever wanted in drag. Like, and that also kind of means maybe I'm done with it, too. Yeah. Like, to decide what I want to do next. Yeah. I've had a lot of fun. I've made a lot of friends. If it wasn't for drag, I wouldn't have my best friend or husband, like we talked about in a previous episode. All of my best friends, actually. Yeah. Are from drag in my current life. And so I don't know what's next for Coco Jump Holiday, but that cruise gave me a really great, it gave me a lot of I was able to be introspective about what I want to happen next too.
Yeah.
Like I'm sick and tired of giving energy to people who are committed to misunderstanding me.
Yeah. I'm familiar with that saying. I completely get it.
Me and Diana actually, I'll kind of leave it with this. Me and Diana kind of said, if Portland already thought that we thought of ourselves as a big deal because it's kind of the reputation her and I have that we think more of ourselves than we are, like this cruise really made us believe that we were good enough for what we were doing and made us feel like we were on that same level as those other headliners and making us feel like we achieved something great. Because like our tips were cute. People were excited to see us and hang out with us. They bought our merch.
They bought the dinners with you.
Yeah, well, actually, me and Diana didn't have any dinners bought with us.
Oh.
No, they had dinners with us, but we didn't have any private dinners.
Oh, damn.
But that's actually kind of okay, because we get to just, like, hang out and bond with people. And
That's,
love that.
yeah, you get the opportunity to grow your fan base.
Yeah.
You know? Like, that's a really cool thing about this opportunity, too.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful experience. So I don't really know what's next. I know that I still love drag. I love performing in it. I don't like the BS. That comes along with doing drag. But even yesterday when I was like, or 2 days ago when I was out, no, it was yesterday I did a stand-up comedy thing. Oh, the other thing is I might move towards the stand-up comedy route too.
I think that's good. You
Yeah,
know?
because that makes me nervous.
Yeah.
And I like being nervous.
That's the important thing, I think, when it comes to any kind of entertainment, is that those nerves are something that you can transmute and channel into confidence. And it's something that when you get to that point, it's exciting.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, I think, the amazing thing about starting any new kind of like entertainment based craft is that you always get those like anticipatory nerves that are natural.
Right. And last night I didn't do any stand up, but I was invited to guest as a drag queen to do drag numbers at the stand up night, and we're gonna do that monthly at Local Lounge. And I think that is an opportunity for me to get just like. When a comedian ever says I'm funny, I always just take that as a huge compliment.
Yeah.
And so they've been saying that they like my stuff, they think it's funny, and so maybe I'll continue on that route for a while and just keep being nervous and learning to grow in that, and finally have like an hour's worth of solid material, which would be great because right now I only have 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you everyone for listening. We'll see what Coco Gem Holiday's journey is here in January when you decide on which path it is that you're definitively taking with drag.
Yeah, as I focus forward.
Yeah. And thanks again for tuning in. We will have a new episode for you next week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
This has been another episode of A Gem of a Secret podcast. The hosts of A Gem of a Secret podcast are Donatella My Secrets and Coco Gem Holiday. You may follow Donatella My Secrets at Donatella_My Secrets on Instagram. You may follow Coco Gem Holiday at Coco Gem Holiday on Instagram. Original music by Touche Douche and Party Favors. You can follow them respectively at The Touche Douche and at Party Favors Music on Instagram. For more exclusive content, visit www.agemofasecretpodcast.com. That is AJEM of a secret podcast.com. Be sure to tune in every week on Thursday for a new episode wherever you listen to podcasts. If you have any comments or questions, email us at agemofasecretpod@gmail.com. Please don't forget to like, rate, and subscribe. Until next time, goodbye.